This is Housebound. I'm Chris.
I'm Holly.
I'm Ashlyn.
I'm Greg.
And you're invited.
Welcome to Housebound, a podcast we made because we needed company. In it, we talk about things that are on our minds, and today we're talking about purchases, physical versus digital. We all live in a fairly materialistic North American culture, and so we tend to all have quite a few amount of different things that we own. And there's lots of different media that's out there to consume. We have free time. We no longer have to work from dawn till dusk. And so one of the things that I at least do is I definitely purchase like books, movies, music, video games. And so the question today is whether or not getting those products either as physical or as digital, out of those two options, what's the better option? And so, yeah, we're just going to see kind of how this goes and hear your guys' opinions. And so from just a gut reaction, what do you guys prefer, physical or digital media, just overall?
Digital.
Digital?
Yes.
Nice.
Certainly.
I think I prefer physical.
Okay.
I think I'm moving from physical to digital on a lot of different things. Also, I feel like if you've listened to the collections episode, you know that some people on this podcast might have very strong opinions about these specific forms of media.
I'd like to amend my answer and say mostly digital, but if we're talking about books, I like to have that be physical. Because those are hard for my eyes.
Yeah, I do think it depends on the medium, and maybe we can go dig into each of those different categories and talk about it. I know probably for myself, I would have definitely been a hardcore, like everything has to be like physical. We can't cave in to the digital market. That doesn't make any sense. We're losing we're going to lose our libraries. We're going to lose our chance to listen to music albums, in a store or whatever, and all of these different things. And so, but I think having gone through and seen how that transition has worked out, I'm definitely more I'm probably getting more to the digital side of it now, especially probably within the last year. But yeah, let's talk about maybe books for a second, just because I think that's something that's, for me, I still do for sure appreciate having a physical book for a number of different reasons. But yeah, maybe you guys can let me know what are your opinions on physical or digital when it comes to books.
I like how books smell.
Really? Everyone always says that. And I can honestly say I do not like the smell of books.
That's...
Like, are we talking about books in general, or are we talking about, like, you go into the bookstore and you pull it off the shelf and you smell it? That's the smell that you like?
Old books,
like that smell.
New books, medium-aged books, young books, like all of them.
Well-aged books.
I don't get the whole book smell thing. It always just kind of smells like a paper mill or mold.
Yeah. I like those smells.
I like smells of raspberry, vanilla,
I like those
lavender
smells too.
Paper mill
That's
isn't
why they
going to
sell
make
candles
it
at
right high
bookstores.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only book that I have ever held in my hands and not enjoyed the way that it smelled was, and I apologize for any of our listeners who are maybe of this age or wear strong perfume, but it was a borrowed book from a lady that was just out of middle-aged, and I think she may have sprayed it with her just out of middle-aged perfume many times.
Maybe it just sat beside her, like, makeup on her bedside table or something. I don't know where women keep their makeup, apparently. Never mind.
I don't know, but it smelled so strong of not great perfume that I opened it and I honestly, my eyes started to water and I was like, I cannot read this book.
Wow.
And I gave it back to her the next day.
It's very intense.
Yes. But paper mills, mold, it's good. It's good smell.
I don't get it. Huh.
I definitely enjoy physical books. Something tangible is always something that I have preferred. And
you like to crack the spine?
No, but I don't. We have a whole podcast where we get into that, so
Just feel that satisfying feeling when you dog ear a page.
Yeah.
or
Yikes.
the guilt when you dog ear a page, but it's a library book and you're a teen and you didn't know any better.
It's okay.
But I have grown to appreciate audiobooks, and I think that that's an overlooked form of the digital book media that people usually think e-readers or physical books, but the audiobook is kind of this hybrid of what you would maybe encounter through a video performance, but it's with a non-visual medium. So it still allows you the access to the parts of your brain that imagine, because you're still taking in the sound effects, if any, and the voice acting, if good.
If good, yes.
And you're placing that within a world within your mind, and so I enjoy being able to do like a road trip or something and have these books or the experience of these books. And I don't really consider the audiobook experience to be much different than if you've just read a book. If somebody's read a book, I'll say, great, I have also experienced that book. I won't discriminate based on, oh, you listen to an audiobook, that doesn't really count as reading, because, I mean, how is...
Is that what
Sure.
would be?
Sure, is that even a thing? I
In
bet
the
you there's a thing for it.
There
The
probably
discrimination
More
of
like
media types
listenism,
in books. So, but yeah, so audiobook is something that I've really come to enjoy in the last 5 to 7 years. And it helps me motor through a lot more material than I would if I was left to just having to be forced to read it. And it also opens up your world to a whole lot more material, because there's stuff out there that is audiobook format only, and it's just created exclusively for that format. Kind of like the old style of radio plays and things like that people used to listen to back in the day.
I wish radio dramas were still a thing.
They are. They're just in podcast form now.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say there are some podcasts that are like that, so we might have to put a couple of our favorites in the show notes so that we don't spend all of this episode talking about it.
I won't say anything.
I think if you ever hear me say that I listen to a book on audio, you should definitely discriminate against me slightly, because I probably got about maybe 25% of that book, whereas if I read it, I probably have retained about 75%. So I just, it's something
you need
about
to do both.
You read really slow, so you
I do read really
slowly
slow.
take it in when you
yeah.
like read. But when it's an audiobook, it just like comes at you at whatever speed it comes at you, and all you can do is speed it up usually.
Which is why, like, I wish that I could actually consume audiobooks, like then I could actually get through a bunch of books. But like you're saying, Chris, like it's a nice way to get through it even while you're doing something else, like driving or folding laundry, whatever, right? So it's kind of that easier way to get through a book series that otherwise you'd have to like block out a time, find the right lighting, find a comfy seat,
right lighting,
and all that, right?
Which is to say, any lighting.
Yeah. Any light at all?
If you're holding the book at the angle that I hold it at, you have to find the right lighting.
Yeah, that's correct.
Called you need a flashlight to shine it in there, because there's no light naturally getting in.
I think it's more called you need therapy, right? So, but anyways, we've already talked about that on a previous podcast. Feel free, listeners, to go back and listen to our, I think it's our book conversation or collecting conversation, one of the two. But
this series isn't titled "Go Off on Greg." Yeah,
it could be though. It could be interventions all around. So, but yeah. So I know for myself with like the digital side of it, while, yep, for sure in the past, like I would have been a definitive like physical book collecting kind of person. Now that I have like a Kindle that is a nice like portable device that allows that I can just bring along like camping, and I don't have to worry about washing my hands before I read the book, which is what I do. I'm weird like that. So having that Kindle where I know it's just a device, it has its own kind of protector on it, so I don't have to worry too much, and I can just have a bunch of books there. I see the value in having that digital medium. And I know my having grown up traveling a lot, like I know my parents back when we, used to live overseas, they would have so valued having like a Kindle instead of hauling crates of books for us to be able to like read through the year, right? So, because they come back here for summer and then we buy a bunch of books and load them up into these crates and then these Tupperware bins or whatever, and then bring that, or Rubbermaid bins, and bring just boxes of books, because we'd go to, there wouldn't necessarily be a library available, and so that was what we brought. So having a Kindle probably would have saved them a lot in shipping costs. So yep. So
but such is how technology works in the world, right? Like, was this at a time when Kindles and e-readers were a thing that existed widely, or was this prior? This
was prior. So that's where,
so coulda, woulda, shoulda, but it does make you wonder, how would this experience in my life been different with the access to that technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like, I think at least I'd be interested to hear you guys' thoughts, but in terms of reading something like a book on the computer, though, how do you rate that experience on a scale of despicable to lovely?
Depends on what it is.
I've never read a book on a computer.
I used to always prefer physical books, and for textbooks and reading for pleasure. But that's because I didn't have a Kobo, and now I own a Kobo, and so I can get books out from the library without even visiting the library.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
So I love it for that purpose. But I never used to write like reading on my computer, especially for textbooks, because it's so clumpy and you can't just flip through it, until I figured out Control F, which now makes
the find option,
reading textbooks on the computer the best ever when you're studying or researching or whatever, because I can Control F and find whatever topic or subject I'm looking for within the textbook. Super easy, and every single reference to that historical character or term in biology or whatever it is that I'm looking for, like on a list on the side of my screen, and it's the best.
Cool.
I hated reading fiction on or like reading for pleasure on the computer, because when I read with a book in front of me, I don't even know if Chris has ever noticed this, but I'll like flip over like 360 degrees within a chapter sometimes. Like I have to move around while I read, and you can't do that with a computer. You could probably do it with a Kobo or something, but like sometimes on the couch, my legs will be over the back of the couch and I'll just be like reading basically upside down, or on your belly on the bed or whatever, because you just get uncomfortable and you have to keep moving around. So I really disliked, I tried to read some fan fiction thing on the computer when I was young, and I was like, this is terrible. I hate it. And you always lose your spot because it's not as like the pages aren't as nice and stuff. So yeah, I definitely dislike the computer. But I haven't experienced a Kobo or a tablet form. I think I would probably enjoy that.
They're lovely because it's not the same strain on your eyes as a computer.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I've read many articles on my phone and on my desktop and on my laptop, probably primarily on my phone in the last 7 to 10 years. That's where I do a majority of my article reading, but I don't know that I have ever really read a book on an electronic device. I've read maybe a chapter preview off of my phone in the past, but that's about it. And I don't know that I'd be able to sustain reading too much on my phone, because I think it's a little bit like what Holly was saying. If it's on a computer, you might be able to have the full page in front of you. If it's on a laptop, depending on the size of the screen, you might be able to do the same. If it's on a tablet or a phone, you're probably cutting off part of that page. Or I just like to be able to know where I am when I'm reading, and you can feel that sense of accomplishment when your right hand gets lighter and lighter and lighter as the book gets further and further along.
Yep.
And yeah, there's just something about that experience. I don't think that there's anything wrong with people that enjoy it on an electronic device. I prefer reading something physical. So
yeah, that sense of progress is definitely a fun thing that the digital editions of books, they try to mimic, with at least showing you on a little bar that tells you how far you are, but it's not the same feeling of accomplishment, like holding that amount of page, like I finished this amount of pages, like it's more tangible. So and yeah, I know for myself, definitely reading on the computer, don't like it at all. On my phone, I didn't find it too bad, but now that I have an LG phone that allows me to have a second screen attachment, that definitely has changed how I perceive reading on my phone. Because having just that, almost like you're unfolding a book with those two screens, and you have one page of text here and the other page of text on the other screen, and then just being able to have that, it does something mentally in my head that just feels right. It's weird, but and so I've been able to power through this. I have this like Logos Bible software app that's only available on computer or phone, and now I've been able to actually read through some of the books that I have on there, because it's just way easier to read with it being on my phone, having that extra screen. So yeah, that's definitely has changed how I view books. But I understand for sure, Chris, your sense of like progress and having that ability to feel that tangibly.
Yeah. I do like, however, on ebooks, that with the progress, like that it still has a bar on the bottom that shows you exactly how much you've completed of like the chapter or the book or whatever you change the settings to. But what's nice is it'll tell you exactly how many minutes it'll take you to read the next chapter and how many hours it'll take you to finish the whole book, which is very handy.
I actually get panicked by the chapter minutes, because I automatically, I see that and go, okay, I should have enough time to finish up this chapter before I need to go and leave and do something. But it freaks me out because now I know that I'm on the clock. And so I actually go so much slower, because I now know that it'll take me 5 minutes, and instead it takes me like, it's weird. It's a mental thing. Anyways, we've already talked about how I have mental issues. So
I think that's just your problems.
It is. So
the technology is great.
Yeah, so maybe we can move on to movies and talk about maybe digital versus physical when it comes to movies. And probably we can rope in video games with that too, just because they're somewhat similar.
I have zero reason to have any physical copy of movie or video game.
Agreed.
Yeah.
If we're talking about what makes sense, it's like I said before, the e-reader, how would it have improved or bettered your life if your parents had access to an e-reader when you were younger, Greg? But now that technology does exist where you can have a video game or a movie and a plethora of either, and you don't need the physical space to store that. It makes so much sense to never purchase a physical anything again. The only times that I get roped up into maybe I don't want to completely commit to this just yet is when your device is not within Wi-Fi. And if you haven't pre-downloaded the episode from Netflix to your Chromebook, or you haven't got the file from iTunes downloaded to a hard drive that you can move around and use on whichever computer you're watching the movie from iTunes on, suddenly you're hooped because you don't have access to that. Whereas a physical copy of something, you're guaranteed access. And so I think that's the thing that holds me back, but it makes way more sense to like sell digital codes because it cuts down on packaging and it cuts down on shipping times. Like you can get instant access to it as soon as it's available. It's so much more streamlined.
Really? I'm surprised that you would say that.
Yeah, me too. Because I'm like, I'd love to own this movie, but I don't need it as a Blu-ray. And you're like excited about what kind of movie you're getting, a Blu-ray or a DVD or
And what the
whatever.
cover is.
Yeah, what the cover is.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to keep the collecting aspect out of it because we've already talked about that. So purely from a logistical perspective, it does make way more sense to have very little to no physical copies. And we can talk about this in regards to music as well, because my feeling on music is the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't buy CDs anymore. But like for movies and for the video games, what few we do buy, the systems that we have for the video games are ones that aren't supported by internet anymore anyway. So having the physical disc is really the only way to play the game. And for the movies, that was purely a decision based on my collecting desire for that media and also the ability to lend it out to people, because it's way easier to like lend and share something physical than it is to give them access to your account and password your account after they've had access to it so that they don't accidentally send it to a million different friends who also try to get into your account, you know? And so there's hiccups in the system for sure. But it does make more sense for it to be digital by all means.
So will we be seeing you do a garage sale of all your movies that you have digital copies of over the next few weeks?
Yeah, Chris, will we?
Part of the collecting aspect of my personality in regards to that requires me to have a digital copy so that it's usable wherever I want it to be usable, but also to lament when I need 3 to 5 different online services in order to view those digital copies or enjoy that digital media, and then be grateful that I have the disc on the shelf and pull that off and throw it in because the Blu-ray is high def, and if my internet signal isn't great, then I'm not going to get high definition video anyways. Right. And so thank goodness I have a Blu-ray player, you know?
I still don't feel the need to own movies 99% of the time. But I would say the 1% of the time that I would own a movie, I would likely get a physical version so that I can lend it out.
Okay.
Because if it's a movie that if I'm buying it, I likely really, really like the movie. And if I really, really like the movie, I am A-okay with sharing it with you and with other people. So I think I would have a small collection of physical movies, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to add to the complexity of this question, would you just go to the store and buy whatever version of it, whether it was a DVD or otherwise, or would you specifically seek out like the highest, maybe not the most special edition version of it, but the highest quality? So a Blu-ray disc over a DVD, even if the Blu-ray was more expensive.
I'm fine with DVD.
Okay. No, that's fair. It doesn't really play into the question too much, but it does kind of help people understand where you're coming from. And I guess your desire to not purchase most movies is more of a personal thing than movies are wasting away in the landfills of our world and creating clutter. It's more of I don't enjoy most movies.
No, it's just that if it's something I want to watch, generally there's something else I also want to watch that I can stream on a subscription service that's already available.
Gotcha.
And if I really want to watch that one thing, I can also rent it. And half the time, Google Movies gives me 99-cent movie rentals all the time. So I'm usually fine. But I would also get DVD because like my family still doesn't own a Blu-ray player. We're DVD only. So with DVD, you
Weird.
can actually share it with more people because likely everyone has a DVD player, at the very least an optical drive for their laptop or something like that so they can play a DVD. But Blu-rays are a little less common.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great point because optical drives are on their way out. Like, you have to buy those as add-ons to laptops now, unless you get a large enough laptop that has it installed. MacBooks don't come with them.
Not the newer ones, no.
Most laptops don't come with them. You still have... I'm actually still quite impressed that things like the newer Xboxes and PlayStations have optical drives for their discs, and the Switch moving over to those cartridge. I mean, the Switch, Nintendo has always kind of done fancy things, whether it was with the shape of whatever it was, the media that you had to install in order for it to be only usable on a Nintendo device.
Yeah.
But the Switch is like my first clear indication that that's the step that we're headed towards, is these little SD cards, because if you can just download the game with a code, why do you need something physical anyways? You just need a bigger hard drive to keep all of the games installed, and then you're good to go.
Well,
right?
that's the thing is with the Switch, it's a matter of like you can buy the game, which then saves you space on your Switch, or you can expand your storage, or have friends who gift you some storage and throw that in your Switch, and then that allows you to be able to get games, which at the end of the day, I have found with at least our Switch, they're so much cheaper. Like, they can go on such better sales digitally because they're not.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't cost them
There's
anything.
no manufacturing costs.
In terms of other than just like actually producing the game, but like the physical product, they don't have to do any kind of any of that. So it allows like some really good sales. Like, you can have a game that's normally like $45 all of a sudden go on for like a $5, $3 sale and get a bunch of people buying into that. Whereas you couldn't have done that with the physical copy. If you did, it would be in a markdown bin in Walmart, which proved that it didn't sell well, or, you know, or whatever, right? Or proved that they produced. So, but yeah, with, I mean, Ashlyn, you could probably speak to, you talk about how much you appreciate your digital edition of Animal Crossing.
Sure do.
Quite frequently. Yep.
Means I can just pick up the Switch and enter my wonderful vacation island anytime I want.
With just a few quick clicks. So no fiddling around with the SD
It
card.
is nice to be able to loan people games, but I found that we haven't really loan people video games very often.
No.
And if we do, we usually just give people like recommendations to be like, oh, you should get this from the library.
Yeah, right.
I definitely think the loaning factor does impact how you look at this whole conversation of physical versus digital. Because, yeah, for me with movies, it's the same thing where I do want something that I can potentially loan out, and I'm not as worried about loaning those out as I am my books. And so that is something where, yeah, I want to get a movie that I'm cool with watching over again, and I think is just a great film, but also that if nobody's ever watched, or like if a friend of mine hasn't watched like Paddington or something like that, I want to be like, yes, this is an amazing movie that you would have thought looking at the trailer that it was just goofy and children's, and I haven't read Paddington. How can I ever watch a movie like that? But be like, nah, this is a really good movie. It's hilarious, British humor, fun, and just give it to them, and then they have that chance to be able to watch it. So, yeah, I think that when it comes to, for sure, movies and that I don't mind having that physical copy. But with video games, the digital side of it's definitely, I think, the market that things are headed. Yeah, like you've said, Chris, computers haven't had disk drives for a while now. And with Steam and other gaming storefronts that are digital, there's just no need really anymore. You just need enough storage and then you can download it. So music wise, what are you guys thinking?
Digital.
I
used, as a teenager, before digital became a thing, I really enjoyed getting a new CD and taking out the booklet at the front of it.
Yeah.
And just laying on my bed and listening through all of the songs and reading through all of the lyrics as they were playing.
Yep.
And that was lovely and wonderful. But I don't have, like, I guess I do have the time to do that now if I really wanted to, but that's not how I want to spend my time necessarily. So I absolutely love going on to, well, it used to be Google Play Music, but now they've moved us all over to YouTube Music, and just hitting something like Your Personalized Mix or Feeling Lucky and just finding new music that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can just hit like and move on and listen to it later on a like list. Like, it's so much easier, and I'm exposed to so much different music that way that I wouldn't have been if I was just getting physical CDs all the time. So yeah, I definitely like digital.
Yeah, because when you're buying CDs, you're usually buying stuff that you know you like, or that you know that you will probably like.
Mm-hmm.
You can still experience music on the radio or something, but you're less likely to suddenly have a dozen songs by that artist, or a dozen songs by an artist that is of that genre, whether it's the same artist or a dozen different artists. But yeah, I think with music, I started out collecting music with CDs, and then as soon as I was able to have an iTunes account or whatever, I think in the early days it would be Windows Media Player. I think somehow I was able to get the MP3 files off of the discs and just use it as a playlist on Windows Media Player. That was how I consumed the music, because I didn't have a phone in my pocket or an iPod in my backpack. It was really exciting when I got a Discman for the first time, so that I could actually listen to CDs on trips, or again, audiobooks, audio stories on trips. But now that it's way more accessible to purchase a soundtrack on an online service, or even have an online service that just lets you subscribe to it and get access to the stuff for free, pretty much indefinitely, then I'm more likely to do that with the music. Yeah. And I do still have CDs, but I have not bought CDs in probably a couple of years. And the only CDs I've bought in the last couple of years, or have been gifted in the last couple of years, have been specific soundtracks for movies that I was either already in the process of trying to collect and complete a set, which again, go back and listen to our collections episode if you want to dive into the depths of what that means. But
the deep dark depths.
Yeah, or it's not a part of a set. It was just something that I really, really liked and decided that I wanted to support buying the CD as opposed to just buying it online. But the thing with purchasing a CD is you can take that CD and put it on your online account sometimes. And the same thing with movies. You can purchase a movie with a digital code included, put it on your account, and then you get the best of both worlds. So I think that that's why I still purchase some physical stuff, especially movies, is because I realize, well, I am purchasing a digital copy. I'm just purchasing a physical copy as a backup, or the digital copy is the backup, but I'm getting them both at the same time, rather than paying pretty much the same exact price, but for $4 more, I could get a physical copy to either display or loan out or have as a backup. And so I think that's what drives me to still purchase movies like that, but disregard CDs. I don't find myself loaning CDs out to people nearly as often as movies.
What about you, Ashlyn?
For music? I just always stream with subscription services for music now. That's all I use. I love being able to... I love being able to listen to new music. I can only listen to an album I know and love so many times. I love trying out new stuff. So I love being able to download playlists of stuff I haven't heard before, or find out what's trending and listen to it right away, or listen to a new album like as soon as it drops. So I really like that for having music streaming subscription services.
Yeah. I know with me and like in my experience with music, I definitely had a similar memories to Holly, like just being able to like get the CD and listen to it. and dedicate like those 45 minutes to that CD and then opening up the liner notes, reading it along, kind of appreciating any sort of like artwork in there or anything like that. And just like that, the feel of that. And I have some like just, really good memories. Like I can think back on those specific discs and those specific, albums that actually, it was like a whole different experience because it was like me dedicating pretty much like 100% of my thoughts toward that album experience. Whereas now it tends to be music is more like the background or things that I listen to while I'm doing something else. And so it's a lot less dedicated, which in some ways is kind of unfortunate in the sense that like that artist spent a bunch of time putting that, that album together. And so I have, as a kid, I was able to appreciate albums so much more and just even the words and the lyrics, because you can't always catch everything when you're doing something else. So,
you're giving it your full attention.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is something that has been lost with the digital and subscription, world of music. And I do think another thing that, and it kind of comes into play with anything that's sort of been transferred fully digitally, that you lose the sense of being able to actually gift somebody that medium, like that specific album or that specific video game or, so like I think with Steam now and computer becoming now fully digital, it's not like I can give somebody a $20 Steam gift card and say, you need to buy this specific game, because it's really great. I can make suggestions, but in the end, it's a gift card. They do with it what they want. And if I tell them how to use it and am upset if they don't, then that doesn't come across well, right? So with things moving digitally, you lose the sense of lending and also of gifting, I think. Because in the past I've been able to gift specific music albums, and I think music was the one thing for myself that digitally, it was the first shift where I was like, this makes sense. There's no need for me to buy music
100%.
albums, especially now with subscription services. I don't even need to purchase music anymore. I just need to like subscribe. And so, I don't know how that's impacted artists around the world. I'm sure it has had a huge impact on them financially, but at the same time, I do feel that there is a loss with the digital side, but there is still also a gain. So I think you have more exposure to your stuff. It's more accessible to people, right? So you don't have to ship it somewhere. And so there are definitely like pros and cons. Like I know that with music, there was a site that was called Noise Trade. Have you guys heard of it?
I'm familiar with the name.
Yeah. So I think it was bought by Paste Magazine or something along those lines. But what they did was they essentially, the guy who started it up created a site that allowed artists to be able to put their music on there for free, and you would get access to their free music if you gave them your email address and name, or I don't even know if you need to give them your name, but postal code as well, just so that they knew. And so what that did was music artists mostly made their money from shows and concerts. And so by giving you music, you gave them your location, which allowed them to be able to, hey, if I'm doing a tour, I can see how many of my listeners are actually in this location, and then just send them all an email as well when, hey, I'm going on tour, I'll be in your place. And so come buy tickets, and then that helps to actually generate the more income. So they were able to use that digital medium for their advantage, which was kind of a cool way of doing it. So yeah, I definitely, I see the pros and cons both for the consumer and the producer of material. But
I was going to say, when you were talking about giving all of your time to the one album, and it's kind of sad that you can't do that anymore. I was also thinking, though, when you're going through like a mix of music that you haven't heard before, it's such a joy to hear something that actually catches your attention, because you're doing something else and then you're like, what is this song? Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get an album and you're like, I liked one, maybe two songs off of this. But to hear something brand new that catches your attention right away and you have to have it, like sometimes at work, I have to stop what I'm doing and go and see what the song is and press like so that I know that I can have it later. So I think that there's like you were saying, there's losses and gains, but that's definitely a gain for me because I get a lot of different artists' songs that I actually enjoy rather than one artist's songs that I mostly enjoy, like one or two songs and kind of put up with the rest, or like I enjoy them, but not as much as the one or two songs that got me interested in them in the first place. So, yeah.
So then the shift in the consumption of that media influences a shift in our experience, whether that's enjoyment or displeasure of it. That's pretty cool, and it might be mostly relevant to music or possibly also film, but I think that's I think that goes the same in maybe larger and smaller ways for books as well, and also video games, because I mean, video games, honestly, that's just an alternative to the physical board game, right? So if you want to go that far back from it,
that's an interesting thought.
You know, that's the physical to the digital, and so you have the physical game case, but you know, that's how I've always seen it. It's not like I'm trying to draw a comparison between board games and better gaming than digital games, but I'm just saying that the shift in that consumption influences our appreciation of the content in however that's shown.
And something else we left out with music is like this Christmas, Chris gave me a record player, and I have been very much enjoying purchasing records and playing records. I don't have very many yet, but
it's back.
That's a whole different sound, and I'm doing it for a whole different reason. Than just having music playing while I'm doing things.
But you're specifically doing the records, you're specifically purchasing the records, because as fun as that is to listen through a different speaker, there's that nostalgia factor or something that's going on there in the background.
Yeah, it's just cool. I don't know if I have a real reason for ever wanting a record player other than it's neat. It's neato. I like it.
Yeah. No, and I think that the whole board game versus digital side of things, that's an interesting thought. I do know that any board games that have been ported digitally, for example, because there are those out there, they tend to not be crazy great. Like, it's really hard to unless you played the game before to actually experience it digitally. It's really hard because there's so many different rules and things, and it's like a whole nother ball game. So
although once you have played it and you know the rules, like I adored playing Settlers on my phone for the longest time because I knew the rules well, and nobody else had to be interested in playing it with me because that Chris never wants to play that game again because we played it so many times. So it's super fun if you know what you're doing. But I agree, like it's difficult to learn a new version of a board game on digital.
Yeah. And so I think there is something where I don't know if physical board games will ever go away. Like I just can't imagine that that's going to fade into the background unless this whole COVID-19 thing like stretches on for forever and we're not allowed to touch pieces that other people have touched before, and then it becomes that, you know, we have to switch to VR to interact with everyone, and we're all in our little wheelchair screen things and out in space. WALL-E. And yeah. So who knows what'll happen.